Hi, my name is Lex Patino, and I am the group leader of myself, James, Riley, Kyla, and Eddie. I will be talking about how ethnicity impacts social interactions in the workplace. Then James will be talking about how ethnicity impacts social interactions in both classroom and school settings. Then Riley will be talking about code switch between friend groups and how ethnicity impacts social interactions like that. And then Caleb will be talking about how ethnicity impacts social interactions in social media. And then Eddie, who will be our last person and doing the conclusion, will talk about how ethnicity impacts social interactions and relationships. So some background information about my topic. So the main thing that I found out when doing my research of how ethnicity impacts social interactions in the workplace was racism. And racism can greatly impacts and harms interactions between between same ethnicities and different ethnicities. And it can play a huge role of how social interactions take place and form over time. And of course, social interactions can differ between different people, ethnicities, and environments, and can also change or differ with age, social and economic class, working conditions, and gender. So, like in the classrooms, workplaces, and other social settings, ethnic backgrounds can also greatly have both positive and negative impacts because of racism. So, one quote that I want to say from Don Connolly's You May Ask Yourself textbook, begin quote, Elijah Anderson in 1999. And others have pointed out how many minority groups, such as African Americans, learn to code switch in their daily lives by going back and forth as they move between predominantly white social contexts, perhaps their workplace, to environments in which they form the majority, end quote. So this quote is actually very interesting because it actually goes with my next slide, ethnicity and ethnicities. And this quote is actually very interesting because it's not only saying that it pointed out that Anderson pointed out how many minority groups, such as African Americans, but also in my research, I was interviewing different people from different ethnicities, and the majority was mixed, and then it was white and Mexican and African American. And Riley will be talking about code switch later on. So the ethnicities that I interviewed were Mexican, white, and mixed. 25% was Mexican, 35% was white, and 40% was mixed, including a 20% for Taiwanese and white and Jewish, and then Black and Japanese. So some questions that I asked was, are you friends with someone or people at the same ethnicity as you? Why or why not? And yes or no. And they said that it depends. The answers really varied, and a lot of them said sometimes or most of the time. And then I asked this following question that do you get along with people or someone who have the same ethnicity as you, or do you get along better with someone who doesn't have the same ethnicity or ethnicities? And they said depending on the situation, they might get along with the same ethnicity because they could be more friendly and more understanding than the majority of other coworkers. They speak their native language and they're just easier to hang around with than other ethnicities, for example. As I previously said, racism is a huge part of how social interactions impact ethnicity. So I asked if they've ever experienced racism or if they've seen racism in their workplace because of ethnicity. And as well, the answers were varied. Some said yes, some said no. Some have experienced it directly and some haven't, or they've seen it to others and they've seen it happening to themselves as well. So one of the greatest impacts of social interactions is, as I said, racism. And I asked, what do you think racism causes with social interactions? And they said that losing trust in coworkers and bosses, a fear of going to work, fear of coworkers, bosses, a fear of other ethnicities because of racism, and affecting social skills with both current workplace relationships and bonds with others, and it can affect social skills over time as well. So now I want to go into social interactions in the workplace based on ethnicity. So this quote, which is actually the title, 2 in 3 adults think ethnicity, race, national origin affect job opportunities by weforum.org. So right here in the image, it says perceived impact of recent events on race, ethnicity, or national origin based on differences and opportunities. 46% saw increased differences, while 43% had no impact. The minimum of 12% saw some differences, both in housing, education, employment, and social services in their country and their state based on their ethnicity. And in the workplace, they saw that. So, one popular source that I found was Sage Journals, and one of the quotes says that there is some evidence that racial composition of the workplace may influence the formation of workplace social ties. So, what this quote does, it highlights how much ethnicity has a huge impact in the workplace, and it provides insight into the differences between ethnicities in the workplace. This goes to my next slide, which the next quote says, also by Sage Journals, that our findings suggest that compared to their white counterparts, African Americans are disadvantaged in terms of workplace social ties and perceived coworker support. So again, this highlights the huge impact that ethnicities have in the workplace and highlights the significant differences between two ethnicities and how some ethnicities are greatly disadvantaged in the workplace when it comes to social ties and support from their coworkers. So like the quote was comparing African Americans compared to their white counterparts. So this actually leads into my next slide, where historical minorities have a disadvantage. And like the quote mentioned, African Americans, Mexicans, and Native Americans who have a job are most of the time victims of racism and are very disadvantaged in social work ties because of their ethnicity. And this is actually very sad because compared to African Americans, their white counterparts, they are they have more benefits because of their skin tone and their ethnicity. And this also leads to my next slide based on ethnic diversity and more social interactions. That like I said, ethnic diversity can have positive and negative changes and effects, and it can positively affect some people while also making it harder for others based on ethnicity. And then social interactions between people who have the same ethnicity have better and more positive outcomes. And this is because youth tends to have more social interactions with others because it helps them build stronger relationships, not only with themselves, but also with others, with both the same ethnicity and other ethnicities in the workplace. And this varies on how they interact because youth, the majority of the people that I interviewed said that because that they were friends with other people who either had the same ethnicity as them, made their social skills and social interactions grow compared to someone who has a different ethnicity, because they felt more connected and they found more ability to connect with one another compared to a group of friends, for example, who are multi-race, multi-ethnicity. So here are my works cited, and thank you. So now James will be talking to you about how ethnicity impacts social interactions in school and classroom settings.
Hello, everybody. My name is James Pina, and today I will be talking about how ethnicity affects social interactions in schools and in classrooms. So, the first question I asked was, do you think a classroom that is less ethnically diverse is a bad thing socially compared to a lot of diversity, and why? So the answer I got was absolutely. Homogeneous classrooms lead to homogeneous ideas, and people will begin to lose perspective. A classroom with not diverse ethnicities creates a bubble. So, to summarize this, an ethnically diverse classroom will allow for many ideas and perspectives to thrive. The social interactions between students are greater when there is diversity of ethnicities between students. Question 2. Do you think it is important for a teacher or professor to consider each student's ethnicity? Why or why not? Answer: yes, it is important. To ignore it would be colorblind racism, and there's a need to be aware of it. You have to understand to best tailor a classroom experience. If a teacher is aware of the ethnicity of their students, they can properly gauge their classroom to their students. It can increase a student's comfort level and increase social interactions. The increase of social interactions and connections with the teacher to student can help the student succeed. So here's a quote from Dalton Conley in You May Ask Yourself 7th edition, the textbook. Humans' behaviors and personalities are shaped by their social and physical environments, a concept known as social ecology. What people experience in school can influence their life because schools are a place where people are socialized, especially at a younger grade and age. Question 3. Does ethnicity of students affect the social interactions between other students and or teachers? The answer: yes, it can have an effect, and most of the time it is positive. To summarize this, the ethnicity of students affects the social interactions and is a positive effect most of the time. Just like before, when a teacher or a professor is aware of their students' ethnicities, they can cater their teaching to resonate with the students and create a better learning environment. So here's another quote from Sage Journals. There's fairly strong evidence that Black students score higher on achievement tests when assigned to a Black teacher. Less consistent evidence is found with Latino or Latino students. I think the point of knowing this is proof that a more diverse body of teachers can and will impact the students' social interactions and their ability to perform academically. Question 4. Do you think racism happens less in classrooms or not? The answer I got was about the same, and it has not improved, has not lessened, only changed. Unfortunately, racism appears to still happen in schools and in classrooms. This negatively affects social interactions for various reasons. It can affect mental health and well being. If the students experience racism, it can increase social anxiety and lower their social interactions. So, in conclusion, ethnicity can and does have effect on social interactions in classrooms and in other places. It can sometimes have a positive effect on students. However, unfortunately, it does have negative effects. It is important for teachers to understand the ethnicity and diversity of their students. With a proper understanding, teachers can make their classroom a better experience and more engaged learning environment for their students. So here's some sites, and thank you. And now Riley will talk about code switching and social interactions with.
My name is Riley Lenahan, and my topic focuses on social interactions in friend groups and in friendships, which is also known as code switching. Code switching can do things like generate hostility, stereotypes, anxiety, and self consciousness. And this can also lead to issues in things such as language, proficiency, social identity, and mental health. Code switching has also become a language that is kind of an important part of the way people communicate in different communities. Code switching is becoming more normalized in friend groups, such as like fitting in better with certain groups of people or making others feel more comfortable around them. Switching is something that allows people to communicate ideas without speaking those ideas out. It's the process of shifting from one linguistic code to another, and this involves factors like social contacts or like social interaction. And a quote by Dalton Conley from the textbook You Might Ask Yourself says, "People who move fluidly from one cultural setting to another learn to code switch by swapping out one setting of meanings, values, and languages on the fly." A quote that kind of sums up code switching and how that works is from the textbook You Might Ask Yourself, and it says, "Individual psychology, or the cultural or social context in which they are embedded, we can predict how people behave based solely on the number of members or the social actors in that group. Now that I have described a little bit about code switching and that overall topic, I will show an interview from a member of the community on code switching.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here with my roommate.
Jamie Cabral,
And Jamie, what is your ethnicity?
Filipino.
Okay. And how do your interactions change with different friend groups, and are there any factors that affect that or play into that?
My interactions with different friend groups varies because everybody has different personalities and humor. So I try to reciprocate the same energy based on that.
And have you noticed yourself code switching?
Yes, I think I code switch on a daily basis depending on who I'm speaking with.
Okay. Okay. And do you notice that with different ethnicities or races?
Yes, I notice how different cultures have different ways that they speak and different vocabulary and different humor.
And have you noticed other people in your friend groups or around you code switching?
Yes, I think everybody code switches depending on like who they're talking with, whether that's like in a work environment, school environment, or like casual talk.
And do you feel the need to code switch? And if you do, why?
Yes, I think it's necessary to code switch so that you are speaking appropriately, like to a superior in work or to somebody that, or like a job interview, or even like at home, just like a sign of respect.
And I am going to do my section on social media impacts of interactions on ethnicity. Today we're going to cover the overview of interactions of social media, one being your race and ethnicity, who are you? 2, outcomes, what advantages has social media provided you throughout your life? 3, involvement, do you like to interact in one part of social media, a specific category, or with a specific set of people? 4, why? Why did you join social media? So these are my study volunteers. I had 3 different people. I had Moses Espinoza, Maggie Jean Sandoval, and Avery Oaks. Moses is Native American and Mexican, while Maggie Jean is Mexican and Yemen, and we have Avery as identified as Caucasian. I asked them what the overall take on social media was involved in their lives, and Moses says it has a negative impact, while MJ has said it has both negative and positive effects, and then Avery said there's been a positive effect on her life using social media. They're both around the same ages, about 18 and 19, and their averages spent on time social media is about 2 hours. Moses spends about an hour and a half, while Maggie spends about 3, and Avery spends about 4. So these are the answers plus results that I've gotten from the questions I've asked, mainly why, which, and how social media has affected their lives. And an overview of them, it's mostly about contact and connection from all around. They use it due to a lot of social pressure in their environment, such as since everyone was using it, there's a lot of connection and usage throughout the social media game and why they started using it. All ranging around the time they started using social media was about junior high and middle school, so which is around the ages from 10 to 13 is when they first started having social media presence. Mainly the first account they have used for my research and that's what they told me was Instagram. Instagram was mainly most of today's generation, especially people born in 2003 and 2000 through 2005 was about Instagram, because that was the thing that was kind of trending back in the day. And as you can see from which they social media platform they use mostly will be Instagram. And nowadays, I think if you talk to the younger generation, they would probably mostly say TikTok. How has social media affected their lives? Whether it's a benefit or a negative impact. Moses says it's a double-edged sword, a connective tool, but a negative aspect. He goes more into detail about how social media has the good and the bad, and that you can either use it as a connective tool or you can use it as a more harmful towards your negative health. While MJ says it has an overall negative impact that has shown in her life, such as not really being in the present, which is taking valuable time when they're not on the screen. She likes to live her life more profoundly off the screen and more present. While Avery uses more of a contact tool. She sees it as for people that are like long distance and don't want to talk to them via social media. And she likes using social media as a way to get her news and information, as been told. From the outcomes of the social media impact on ethnicity, the average age to start using social media for them was age 12. Was there more of a beneficial or harmful effect? A lot of people lean on the negative side and harmful scale due to a lot of effects on their mental health, such as procrastination, laziness, especially in the media where we have access to our phones now. They tend to have less self-control. Another question that I did put out there is, do you stay on a specific set of people on social media? This kind of goes hand in hand with ethnicity. Do you stay with your preferred race? And a lot of people say no, they like to interact with different type of people, all ages, all variations, all races, typically because they kind of come together and connect on a specific interest or hobby found in social media, which is kind of the algorithm that social media is put together. Is based on putting people in certain categories based on what they like and what they're interested in. And does ethnicity influence social media interactions? From my research and outcomes, they do not. Ethnicity does not have effect on interactions versus real life. Comparing to it has been from screen to screen. A lot of people have more hard time interacting socially in person, having a verbal conversation rather than over text is what I found. A lot of people are more comfortable to be talking through a screen rather than interacting due to the pressure of maybe not responding a certain way. Especially you see these through teens, through Snapchat, through things like overanalyzing a text rather than having interactions with certain people just verbally talking. This is conclusively found in my research from what I've learned and come across. And my calls to action for social media users intertwined with sociology theories. There are 3 theories from sociology that has influenced my research on social media. Symbolic interactions and symbolic interactions research shows that social with an emphasis on self-awareness, symbols, and negotiated order. Symbolic interaction are curious about how social networking sites behave as a mirror, allowing users, particularly teens, to be recognized and receive feedback. Goes along with the algorithm, how we're placed into different categories. A functionalist aspect. Functionalists focus on how parts of society in predictable and unanticipated ways to keep existing social order, meaning some expected or observable benefits of social networking sites, including creating connections with different people, allowing members to exchange images and videos, can go hand in hand, like Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, allowing members to exchange, which promotes discussions with like-minded people with same interests and hobbies. Like again, comes back to the algorithm, how we're tended to be categorized on what we like, which makes us become more addicted because we're dwelling in an area and atmosphere that we're more likely to be interested in. Because if you're not interested in something, obviously you wouldn't be aware and likable, because it's not something that captures interest. They also enable users to create, imitate, and engage a lot of people than this is normally. The interaction is people active on social media, kind of like the symbolic interaction is people are active because they offer meaning to the words. For example, by commenting on what they find meaningful, selecting articles that illustrate what they give or meaning to, which is essentially how social media operates via algorithms. You hear me talk a lot about algorithms, and I think that's basically what social media is about, categorizing people into things. Overall, in conclusion, social media does not have an effect on ethnicity, on how we interact with people. We tend to be actually more interchanged with different types of people from all over the parts of the world, rather than just having one specific area that you normally wouldn't have face-to-face in person by your environment. Social media has given positive and negative inroads on both ends, and has particularly gave more of a harmful benefit on the mental side, but for like workplaces, professionalism, learning, it has given actually more than what is typically issued. That is all for my social media section on interaction with ethnicity. Now I'm going to give it up to Riley, who is going to be talking about social interactions and code switching from different ethnicities.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ediverto Barajas Jr., and my topic is social interactions in relationships. It's often common that people go out to find others to socialize with if they are new in their college city or new to a place anywhere for any case. A lot of times, a factor keeping people from going outside of their bubble can be a barrier in ethnicity. Maybe someone is trying to learn how to play golf, but they feel they won't fit in and form a relationship with the locals because they are from a different ethnicity as the locals participating. In this presentation, I will talk about people's testimonies on whether social interactions and relationships can be affected by one's ethnicity. The first interview, I asked, do you believe social interactions can affect relationships based on people's ethnicities? They responded, yes, I do believe social interactions can be affected by one's ethnicity because a lot of people are stereotypical and may not give themselves a chance to meet someone from a different ethnicity as them, because they might already have them labeled in a certain way. Another question was, is it easy for you to create a relationship with those who aren't from the same ethnicity as you? They responded, creating relationships with somebody from a different ethnicity as me is really easy because I am up to meeting new people and don't discriminate against them just because of their ethnicity. The second interview, I asked, do you believe social interactions can affect relationships based on people's ethnicities? Their response was, I'm sure social interactions can be affected by other people's ethnicity for a simple reason, such as language barrier. People might try to meet others, and when they approach them, they find the surprise that they don't speak the same language. Another question was, is it easy for you to create a relationship with those who aren't from the same ethnicity as you? And they responded, a lot of times here in college, I encounter people who aren't from the same ethnicity as me, and I always become good friends with them, so it's not a problem for me. Lastly, on my third interview, I asked, do you believe social interactions can affect relationships based on people's ethnicities? I believe that social interactions can be affected by people's ethnicities because people might often feel more comfortable talking to those with the same ethnicity as them and only be open to conversations with their own group of friends. Another question was, is it easy for you to create relationships with those who aren't from the same ethnicity as you? The responder said, as someone who came to stay from a different country, social interactions haven't been interrupted for an ethnicity barrier, and everyone I've met has been super welcoming no matter my ethnicity. In conclusion, most of the people I interviewed said they didn't have a problem meeting people from different ethnicities as them or have experienced any discrimination against their ethnicity, but mentioned they know that there is people in the world who discriminate against certain people of certain ethnicities. Thank you.